everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie I.S.S. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you are concerned about spoilers and you haven't seen the movie yet, I would suggest you go ahead and watch the movie before you watch this review. So, I.S.S. is a movie about astronauts on the I.S.S., International Space Station. U.S. and American astronauts. War is declared on Earth, and they both get a message telling them to take over the station by any means necessary. So, far as what I liked about the movie, overall the cast was great. Ariana DeBose, this is pretty much the first thing I've seen her in. I know she won the Oscar for West Side Story, I think, but I never saw that. I'm not a big musical fan, but she was great in this as Dr. Kira Foster. I really like Chris Messina in pretty much everything, but he was great in this as the commander, Gordon Barrett. John Gallagher Jr., I liked him as the kind of jerk, asshole American guy who was just concerned about getting back to his family. And all the Russian characters, Maria Mashkova, Costa Ronin, and particularly Pilou Asbæk, who I know from Game of Thrones. He was great as a Russian. I think he's a Danish in real life. But yeah, did a good job as a Russian in this. I believed him. Overall, performances are solid. It's basically just six people in the whole movie. And yeah, I think that they all worked. Cinematography I really liked. It was by Nick Remy Matthews. He did Hotel Mumbai and The Seventh Day before this. And I liked the score. It was by Anne Nicotine. I don't know. She did American Animals and the TV show The Dropout. It was kind of one of those scores where it was very clangy and kind of discordant, I suppose, but I liked it. It worked. I'm kind of coming around to that style, I think, of score or music making. I like the concept. I think the initial concept of the movie is really great. I think that's, what basically made me want to see the movie. And I think everyone who I've described the concept of the movie to is like, oh, that's a great idea. It's an interesting concept for a movie. Now, whether or not they executed it well is, I guess, a matter of opinion. But I really like the beginning, the opening of like, it's Kira's first day on the ISS. She's kind of getting to know everybody there, and they kind of explain how they're all together. They're scientists. They're above politics. They talk about how they don't really care about what's going on down there, and then they kind of talk about the whole winds of change and how important that song is to them. And they have this whole thing, and I don't remember the exact quote, but they have this thing they say in Russian about like staying together, stronger together or something. I don't remember the exact quote, but all of that I think really built up and kind of set the scene for what was about to happen in the movie. I really like the whole cupola scene where they take her up and they kind of show her what Earth looks like, and they're like, "Oh, you don't feel it, do you?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, I totally feel it." And they're like, "No, no, you don't." And the one guy's like, "Yeah, it's fine. I didn't feel it either." I will say I think I felt it though, like especially once they started explaining about how there's no borders and everything, and about how it just really kind of makes you feel so small in comparison to like the size of the Earth, and how insignificant all of your kind of problems are when you're that far away and everything. And yeah, I really liked it. And again, it really worked for the movie, I think. And all of that up to this point, the beginning of the movie, I really, really liked a lot. I liked all the stuff with the mice. So she was trying to learn how to, deal with them, and why she was up there. Basically, she was working on organs in some way, I think. And she wanted the mice up there because the zero gravity would help, maybe. With the organ growth. But yeah, and then the one dude helps her out by putting in like a little lattice or whatever, a little cage for them to climb on. I liked that. I thought that was pretty good. I liked that there's some pretty tense moments in the movie, especially in the very beginning, once they first get that message to take the station, and you see like, the dude kind of peeking over the corner, or like you see the guy like about to like snip the thing, but he's like, I can't do it, like there's a lot of that stuff. And especially when when that first happens and you're not quite sure, have the Russians received the same message or not? What are the Americans going to do? Who can you trust and who can't you trust? Like all of that, I think was really good. I like there was bad guys on both sides. It wasn't just, oh, all the Russians are evil. Really, there was just one evil Russian, and one who did something kind of bad, but I guess he didn't understand why. Although the fact that he still did it was questionable. But either way, but there's basically one bad Russian and one bad American. And so I appreciated that. It wasn't just like, oh, Russians are bad. You can't trust the Russians, like, that kind of stuff. I think there's some really cool kills. There's a couple of like stabs, where the one guy gets kind of reamed with a drill, and they're in space, so there's no gravity, so you see like the blood bubbles just kind of like floating around and stuff. Like very cool, very interesting, very kind of artistic, different kind of. I mean, I've seen similar kind of stuff, but still, I liked it. I appreciated it. It was good, and I think for the most part, the CGI was pretty good throughout. It was believable. The station looked good as well, the set design and everything. But yeah, very few times. There's a couple times, for the most part, I didn't really question the fact that they were in space, you know? So yeah, I really like that. And overall, I really like the movie and I like the story and I like the idea. And I really like just the concept of, yeah, you know, what would you do? Would you obey your orders or would you, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Disobey your orders, I guess. Yeah, overall, really liked it. As far as what I disliked about the movie, though, it is a little simple. It's a little basic. It's basically like, here's the premise, and there's not too many twists or anything after that. And it's a little short. It's an hour and 35 minutes, I think, which I normally complain movies are too long, but this one maybe could have used an extra 10 minutes, you know, maybe just a little extra time, maybe 5 minutes even, just to spend with the characters and kind of get to know the characters a little better and establish them. And they do somewhat throughout the story, but maybe just a little bit more. Because, yeah, I mean, I know we know about Kira. It's her first day. She talks about she had a girlfriend who cheated on her and stuff. And we know about the commander and the Russian woman. They kind of have a relationship, but the other characters were a little undeveloped for me, like the Russian commander, but we didn't really learn much about, and the American guy, and the fact that he wants to get home to his family and is a jerk, we didn't really learn much about. It was kind of by design, I suppose, but still, I think maybe spending a little more time with the characters and getting to sort of know them and endear them to us would help. And I would have liked a little more mystery, a little more intrigue, a little more time spent between when they first got the message to do it and them deciding if they were going to, you know, follow the orders, and then also trying to figure out if the Russians had gotten the message or not. So instead of maybe just having the thing where like he's going to cut the wire immediately and then he doesn't cut the wire and then he does cut the wire, maybe have a different situation entirely where, you know, whatever reason the arm still smacks the guy off, but then they're like, what happened? And the guy's like, oh, it was a malfunction. And he's like, what do you mean it was a malfunction? Or they had him do something else where he's like, oh, you've got to, you know, turn off the power to this thing for this reason. And the guy listens to him and then it turns out to, you know, hurt the other guy. And then he's like, why did you tell me to do that? And he's like, no, I thought that was the right thing to do. And then you've got a little, and there's a little bit of that, mostly with the Russian woman. But if they would have done a little bit more of that, I think I would have appreciated it more. Or even there's parts where I was waiting to find out because Kira is like the new, her name is Kira. Kira is the new person on the ship. So I was waiting to find out maybe she's somehow a secret agent working for the Russians, or I don't know, maybe she had some kind of an intrigue behind her. But now it's pretty much just like, here's a story, which again, that's fine. I appreciate that it was pretty simple and straightforward, but a little more complexity, I think, would have been appreciated. I think some of the CGI, for the most part, the CGI was great, but there was at least one scene where I was like, oh, they're on wires. The actors are on wires. I don't know what it was. Something about it just made me go like, oh, something about that movement there seemed just like, oh, okay, they're on a wire and they're pulling them around. Like it was just really one scene, I think, where I noticed that. But other than that, and then the ISS arm to me looked fake, but I think that's probably just what it looks like. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt that it just looks weird and crinkly like paper mache, but to me it looked very cheap and chintzy. I think that's just probably how it actually looks for, I'm sure, some good scientific reason. There's really not a lot of music either. Like they use Winds of Change. They do play it in the beginning of the movie. They play it in the trailer, but then they never play really any other songs throughout that I remember. Maybe at the end credits or something, but it would have been nice to have at least a little more, you know, songs in there, or at least play Winds of Change again. Maybe it wouldn't have fit. I was kind of expecting to show up again at the end, but maybe it wouldn't have fit. And maybe that would have been a little cheesy. But I was just kind of surprised by the fact that there's really no music. I'm trying to remember. Was there more music, or was that it? Maybe there's one other song. I don't know. And I think bringing back the Commander Messina's character after he had already kind of been knocked off felt a little cheap. In a way, I was glad he was still alive because I liked that character. Then he comes back to find out that his, you know, girlfriend is now dead because of his crewmate. And so it's like, and then he just pretty much dies 5 minutes later anyway. So it's like, okay, what would you bring this guy back for? And I don't know if it was an intentional thing where they wanted him to kind of confront the Russian commander and be the one to defeat him because he was the one who tried to kill him, or because I don't know. I just felt like maybe they could have done something a little better, but and I would have been fine with it being Kira, you know, Ariana DeBose's character by herself against that dude, or even against all three of the Russians. I think would have been an okay movie, but I don't know, just kind of I guess I didn't quite understand the need for that. And in some ways I can't exactly explain why, but it felt like a Netflix movie to me. It just felt like the kind of movie. I feel like Netflix even made a movie like this a couple years ago with, I want to say maybe Halle Berry or something, but it was a little different. It was like astronauts and there was some kind of a problem and they had to fix it. And I remember at the end, somebody sacrificed themselves to save the rest of them. I don't know. And maybe it wasn't even a Netflix movie, but it for whatever reason, it just felt like kind of movie I could see being on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something like that. And if so, it was definitely a great movie for them. but maybe just not like a theater quality or level movie. And I do think maybe the title is a little just ISS is fine, but when I first saw it, I was just like, okay, what is this movie about? Is it about the first woman on the ISS or something, or is it about just being on the ISS? Is this some sort of a documentary about the ISS? Like, what's the point? So I don't know. Maybe if they called it like By Any Means Necessary or um, No Matter What or some other thing, which is also kind of vague, honestly. But I don't know. I guess the fact the title doesn't really convey much other than the setting to me is a little I don't know, a little hard to market. So, other than that, movie is directed by Gabriela Cowperthwaite. She has directed some other movies like Our Friend and Megan Levy, which I remember hearing about or seeing trailers for, but I haven't seen them. She also is the only thing I know of hers is Blackfish, which is a documentary about the treatment of whales in captivity. So I do remember that being very good. I think it won the Oscar, which is funny because Fisher Stevens produced it. He was the guy from Short Circuit and Hackers. So the fact that that guy won an Oscar is just always funny to me for a documentary of all things. But yeah, and it was written by Nick Shafir. This is his first credit. He's got something called Mercy Sparks listed on IMDb that's in development, but this is his first writing credit. Rotten Tomatoes in this one is interesting because when I went to look it up before this review, they didn't have a critic rating, which is odd because a couple days ago after I saw the movie, they did, and it was like I think 62%. And if when I went to the Wikipedia, it did say 62% there. So I don't know what changed or why they took the number down, if there's some sort of a brigading going on there, or if some kind of an embargo was put in place after the movie came. I don't know why they did that. But the audience in this one is 44%. So the audience really didn't like this movie, which surprised me because when I saw the critics were at 62, I'm like, yeah, I get that. And the movie was a little shallow. Critics usually want a little more from their movies, but I expected the audience to really like this. And yeah, they didn't. And I was worried that maybe they didn't like it because it was too woke, because like, oh, there's a woman of color in the lead and she's gay or whatever. But it seems like, at least reading through, quickly through the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, that people didn't like the ending. That seemed to be the big thing people really were upset about, is the ending being very anticlimactic or unsatisfying, which I understand, but honestly, the ending didn't bother me. I don't mind it when a movie's kind of open-ended or leaves you kind of lets you come up with the ending. That's fine by me. I don't mind being told, but I think a lot of people do want to have a complete story, and so I understand that as well. But for me, the ending didn't bother me so much. It basically just ends with them on the Soyuz capsule going back to Earth, and the Russian guy going, "Where are we going?" And they're going, "I don't know." So yeah, I guess it would have been nice to know a little bit more about what was going on the Earth and stuff like that. But I don't know. It didn't bother me as much as it bothered everybody else. So budget on this movie is 13.8 million is what I read, which actually lower than I expected. So in that case, I do understand why they didn't have a lot of music, because that is not that expensive, but I'm sure they spent most of their budget on CGI, special effects on this one. And it looks great. It's totally worth it for $13 million. Yeah, I'm very impressed. It made 3 million opening weekend, so not a ton of money, but it doesn't need to make a ton of money to be successful. So 20, 27, 28 million would probably be enough to make it, in the black. That's how you say it, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, good for them. They might make their money back. If not, I'm sure distribution to streaming services and stuff could help out with that as well. Like I said, Ariana DeBose, I know she won an Oscar for West Side Story. I haven't seen that, and yeah, I haven't seen anything else she's been in. From when I was reading up about her, she did some So You Think You Can Dance and some TV shows, I think. And I think she was in Wish, the Disney movie, but I also didn't see that. Well, she did a voice for that. So the only thing I really knew her from was the Oscars, and that really embarrassing like rap speech thing that she did, which to me it was just really cringe and terrible and awful. And I think everyone kind of thought that. So yeah, just going into this thing, I was like, oh, that's that girl from that thing. Like, oh, I don't know about this. And I heard she was good in this, and I was like, really? That she's the Oscar girl? Okay, but no, she was good in this, and I did appreciate it. And I think I had heard some people, speculating the movie is going to be woke because again, there's a woman in the lead or whatever. But like, I don't think the movie was really very woke at all. If anything, it was kind of anti-woke. Like the fact that they had the dude come back and fight the other dude instead of like having a woman try to, outsmart or overpower the men. To me, seemed like kind of I don't know, the opposite of what I expected in some ways. So I, I appreciated it either way, or I guess I didn't care either way. It would have been fine either way they did it. And this is another movie that's on the blacklist. That's a list of screenplays that people like but are considered unproducible for whatever reason. This was on the blacklist for 2020, I think. So yeah, they made it though. So it's a lot of those movies do actually end up eventually getting made. So that's kind of cool. Far as scoring this one, I feel like I really like this movie more than most people. I feel like most people are either not liking it or if they do like it, giving it kind of more like on a 5 or a 6. But for me, this is like a 7 out of 10, I would say. Like maybe even a 7.5. I don't really do halves, but like, yeah, I kind of really enjoyed this movie. And it could have been a little more complex. It could have been a little more interesting. It could have been a little bit longer, maybe. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. And I'm sure if this was something that, came on a Netflix or Amazon Prime or something on a Tuesday afternoon, I would watch this and wouldn't mind it at all. So yeah, I liked it. 7 out of 10. That's my score. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great night. I will see you here again next week.